I can't, unfortunately, work with Canada. We're going to have to spend more time working with
Alberta and Saskatchewan that are speaking up right now. 33%, looking at the idea of separation.
The reason for it is because of bad policies in Ottawa.
Western Canada just dropped a political bomb so loud it echoed straight into Parliament Hill. Honestly, Alberta and Saskatchewan aren't just talking separation anymore. They've signed a binding pact. And now even British Columbia and Manitoba are quietly climbing aboard.
We're going to make Alberta great again, and that is when we cut ourselves off from the leech that is Eastern Canada.
I've never felt this frustrated and angry.
It's about issues, and it's about, in particular, energy issues.
What started as frustration has exploded into a full-blown WEXIT movement, complete with referendums, foreign trade offices, and plans for a brand new Western Republic.
Shows that if the Liberals win on Monday, that number jumps to 30% in Alberta and 33% in Saskatchewan.
It just doesn't want to be subjected to another 4 years of Liberal rule. What's driving this is 9 years of Liberal misrule as perceived by...
So how did we get here? It all started with what looked like a harmless political meetup. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe sitting down in Lloydminster, a border city that literally straddles the two provinces. But this wasn't some friendly lunch or press photo op. Nope. This was a historic joint caucus meeting, and what came out of it hit harder than anyone expected. For the first time in Canadian history, two provincial legislatures sat down together and said, in unison, "We're done playing by Ottawa's rules."
Saskatchewan joined Alberta and Ontario's partnership to build new energy and trade infrastructures.
They didn't just swap complaints about carbon taxes and transfer payments. They signed a joint resolution that outlined the blueprint for a brand new economic alliance, one that cuts Ottawa out entirely. Think, a Western Canadian version of the European Union, but with oil, agriculture, and actual intent behind it. Now, if you thought that meeting was the end of it, think again. Because Alberta and Saskatchewan didn't just talk about sovereignty, they wrote it into law. What came next was the Western Referendum Pact, a binding agreement between the two provinces that puts Ottawa on a 12-month clock. You heard that right. If the federal government doesn't meet 10 specific constitutional and fiscal demands by the deadline, then it's game on. Synchronized provincial referendums on separation, fall 2026.
Completely abusive relationship. And our only alternative, mediation has failed. And so our only alternative is to now file for a divorce from Canada.
And this isn't some vague protest vote either. It's locked, loaded, and dead serious. Alberta and Saskatchewan laid out their demands, and let me tell you, they're not asking politely. They want full control over natural resources, the power to opt out of federal carbon pricing, a complete overhaul of the equalization formula, and even veto rights on any international agreement that touches their industries. Ottawa either backs off or watches the West walk out.
Albertans send about $20 billion per year more to Ottawa than comes back through all transfers.
And if anyone still thinks Alberta's bluffing, let's talk about what pushed them over the edge. This is the economic engine of the country, a province that fuels 14% of Canada's entire GDP with just 11% of the population. Every single day, Alberta pumps out over 4.2 million barrels of oil, runs a $340 billion economy, and sends $20 billion more to Ottawa than it ever gets back.
Alberta has been under attack for the last decade. They've lost two major pipelines, a $20 billion mine. There's a new ridiculous energy cap that's going to drive jobs and production south to the United States of America.
And what does it get in return? Pipeline bans, carbon caps, federal regulations that choke investment. Bill C-69, also known as the No More Pipelines Act, practically handcuffed Alberta's energy industry. Add to that the oil tanker ban on BC's coast, And it's no wonder analysts are saying Alberta has lost over $500 billion in potential investment. That's not a dent. That's a financial amputation.
Frankly, Albertans have a right to be frustrated. And I think the message to the government in Ottawa, the Liberal government, is you can't tell Alberta to just pay up and shut up, but they deserve to be treated with respect, and they deserve to be honored for the immense contribution that they make to this country.
And Alberta's done being polite about it. They've already invoked the Sovereignty Act, not once but twice, and they won. They beat Ottawa in court over plastics regulations and federal interference. And just to make it even clearer, Alberta's opening a permanent trade office in Houston to build its own U.S. energy partnerships. No federal permission, no middleman, no apologies.
Not a country that today they want to be reliant on for that energy security. We shouldn't allow that to happen to us.
And right behind Alberta, Saskatchewan's not just following, they're matching fire with fire. This so-called quiet province just passed the Saskatchewan First Act, and it does exactly what it sounds like. Pushes the feds out of provincial business, especially when it comes to natural resources. Saskatchewan is drawing its own legal line in the sand.
A recent poll suggests that 1 in 4 Albertans would vote to separate from Canada in a referendum.
They're already preparing for a provincial referendum too. And here's the number they're chasing: 125,000 signatures. That's how many it takes to trigger the vote. And based on current polling, they might not need to wait long. 34% of the population is already on board with separation, and among younger voters, it spikes to a jaw-dropping 44%.
To acknowledge that there's a lot of unhappiness on the part of Albertans in the way we've been treated by the Liberal government for the past 10 years.
The frustration runs deep. From uranium and potash to agriculture, every major industry is suffocating under Ottawa's environmental red tape and tax grabs. And like Alberta, Saskatchewan is tired of watching its economy get punished.
The number of British Columbians wanting BC to leave Canada has grown from 20 to 28%.
Now, here's where things take a turn no one saw coming. British Columbia is getting in on the action. Yeah, the same province known for yoga mats, avocado toast, and beachfront protests is now quietly warming up to WEXIT. And it's not just the rural logging towns whispering about it. Support for separation in BC has jumped from 20% to nearly 30%, and it's spreading fast into Vancouver, Kelowna, even Nanaimo.
Separation referendum is negotiation between Alberta and the rest of Canada, including Manitoba.
And if you think Manitoba's just sitting this out, think again. The quiet kid in class is finally speaking up. Premier Dale Hendrickson isn't waving flags or holding rallies, but behind closed doors, his government is moving fast. Manitoba has officially backed the Western Economic Pact, calling it a necessary contingency plan in case Ottawa keeps pretending nothing's wrong. And they're not just talking, they're quietly drafting legal frameworks to take control over trade, immigration, and infrastructure funding. Why? Because if Alberta or Saskatchewan walks, Manitoba's economy takes an 18% hit overnight. And that's a full-blown economic heart attack.
Build Energy East, we'd have 2.5 million barrels more per day of production, which is $55 billion a year worth of GDP value, which is worth $17 billion to my government alone, and about an equal amount.
Everything from oil and agriculture to manufacturing and rail routes flows west. And if those routes break, Manitoba goes down with them. So while they're not shouting WEXIT just yet, they're checking the parachutes and building a plan B. Because no one wants to be left in a burning house with no exit.
We've supported Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan with a trade corridor from Manitoba right through to Prince Rupert. It could include energy projects. It could potentially include a heavy oil pipeline project.
And just when you think this couldn't get more real, the West drops the blueprint for its own economic union. Forget Ottawa. Alberta, Saskatchewan and Manitoba have already signed a trilateral trade pact. It eliminates interprovincial trade barriers, harmonizes regulations, and sets the stage for something Canada's never seen before: a Western economic alliance, fully independent, fully operational, and modeled on the European Union.
People here to have a high quality of life, and it's only through self-determination, which can only come through separation, that we're going to achieve it. And we will achieve it.
With the West making real moves, Ottawa isn't responding, it's reacting.
We need to do everything in our power to unleash our economy and create new opportunities for workers and businesses.
Carney's government is reportedly drafting a national counter-campaign using federal resources to shape public opinion before the referendums even begin. But here's the twist. Internal fractures are already forming. Liberal MPs from the prairies are quietly distancing themselves, saying they won't fight a vote their own constituents are demanding. And this isn't about managing outrage anymore. It's about chasing a movement that's already 2 steps ahead.
Just confined to Alberta. The fact that people in central Canada even think this is just Alberta. No, this is Alberta, Saskatchewan, large parts of Manitoba, and northwestern and western British Columbia.
Western Canada's not just planning a breakup, they're planning a global debut. A new report says if Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and BC align, they'd form the 16th largest economy on the planet, outranking countries like Spain and South Korea. With trade pacts signed and a digital currency in the works, this isn't rebellion, it's a replacement.
For decades, we have not had our voice heard. We have been somewhat alienated from discussions and whatnot. Welcome to our life. You don't see us crying and complaining and wanting to separate.
This isn't just Western alienation anymore. This is a coordinated economic and political revolution, and it's already in motion. The only question left is, will Canada listen, or will the West walk? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're wide awake to what's happening, and don't forget to subscribe. Because this story, it's just getting started.